People travel from a long way around to drive along the Great West Road or take a bus along the Great West Road. To list the building, but the listing wasn't going to happen until after the bank holiday weekend, and they went in over the weekend and knocked the whole thing down. It was a huge outcry. It was all over the press. There's certainly a consensus now in the community that there are huge heritage assets that must be preserved.
I applied for my first job at Trico in 1969, so I was 16 going on 17. And I tried the Great West Road, went to Firestones first, interviewed there, then I walked along. Trico was fairly next door. Firestone and Trico offered me a job. It's difficult to appreciate that in those days you could just walk into a job because there were so many vacancies, and they said to me, all you need to do, make sure you have your national insurance number and bring a cup for your tea breaks. And so that's what I had to do.
I worked at Trico from 1975 to 1980 on the assembly line, making windscreen wipers. It was very sociable because of the women all working together on the assembly lines. It was very sociable, and people, I think, enjoyed it because of the friendships they made, really, and the sort of comradeship. I was on strike for equal pay at Trico from May till October 1976, and that was an experience I shall never forget all my life.
I wouldn't say that they were the best employers, the most radical in making sure the conditions were the best for its employees. I wasn't aware that there was a discrepancy in the pay being paid to women as opposed to men. I think what triggered this was that the men would work on the night shift while on the day shift would be the women. And then Trico closed down the night shift, so the men were working on nights. They were transferred to what we call the twilight shift and the day shift. And because they were being paid a rate for working on the night shift, to a certain extent they lost that eventually, but they were still being paid a higher rate.
The management at Trico thought these women, it's been lovely sunny weather, and they like being outside the factory. Give them a few days and they'll come back in. 5 months later we did come back in, but after we'd won, but such a huge battle. The Equal Pay Act had only just come into force. The employers were given 5 years to implement it, which actually meant a lot of employers spent 5 years looking at ways of avoiding paying equal pay. This was one of the big battles on the picket line to stop these sort of mercenary lorries bringing in supplies and taking out some finished goods from the factory. On this occasion, Eileen Ward was trying to speak to the lorry driver to try and persuade him not to come in, and she was dragged away, and I'm lying on the floor here, having tried to get in front of the lorry, and there's even a helmet of the police flying through the air here.
This is a night picket because the factory tried to bring in a lot of their material. The trucks would come in at night time. So in this particular one, there's a line of us standing across the driveway to try and stop the trucks from coming in. That was very much what it was like, you know, holding hands together and trying to have a physical presence.
And I feel really privileged and very proud to have been one of about nearly 400 women who came out on strike, and also the guys who came out in support of us, and our trade union, which was the AUEW, the engineering union, who backed us all the way. Because it was such a huge battle for women's rights, it means there's a very close bond between us all. Our story will now never be forgotten.
I know, for example, when I was in schools as a teacher, that a lot of young people who came into the teaching profession didn't fully understand the rights and the conditions of service that they had and where it came from. And it came from the fact that people stood up and argued and fought for those rights. And I think that's important, that people should understand that. Young people nowadays should understand it was not given to them. It was not given to us. We had to fight for it. But it's only when you stand together that you can argue the case and make sure that you get a voice and your voice is heard.